Two World Series heroes, non-tendered, and another one too. Hi there. Welcome into an emergency podcast by DLLS Rangers podcast. John Radigan with Jeff Wilson there. And we're so glad to have all of you who we know are there who are normally in our chat, and super glad to have anybody who has not been in our chat before. If we're new to you, know that we've been talking about this for a while. And we saw some of it coming. We didn't see all of it, though. Subscribe to us if you're new. Like us if you're new. We'd appreciate that. And find us each and every day at 1 o'clock, too, because we talk about this stuff every day. Jeff, we've been talking, as we've said on the show, since August, that it was unlikely that the Rangers were going to be able to keep Jonah Heim and Adolis Garcia. Also non-tendered today were Jacob Webb, which I suppose is a surprise, but not a huge one. But to me, the other big one and the other hero is the guy who got the final out in the World Series, Jeff. Josh Boers was non-tendered as well.
Yeah, you're talking about the player in Garcia who basically got the Rangers to the World Series and won game one with a walk-off homer. The guy who threw the last pitch of the World Series. The guy who caught that pitch for the final out.
Yeah.
And the glove throw and their embrace. The embrace is always the pitcher-catcher embrace is always the iconic photo. That's what statues are made out of, right?
Right.
And this statue's gone. You're gonna have to put that one on hold for a few years. And then Adolis, just the 38 home run season that year, the eight home runs in the postseason, ALCS MVP. We're talking about career years for the two position players there, and they just haven't lived up to it. If anything, they've regressed. I mean, they've definitely regressed, but they've maybe even regressed from what their career norms were before that. So it didn't make sense at the price point. The projection for arbitration, their final years, $12.1 million for Adolis, $6 million for Jonah. Doesn't mean that's what they were going to get necessarily, but they were going to get close to it. And the Rangers are going to be able to find better value somewhere in some shape or form, either with a free agent, a trade, or by pairing somebody with their young left-handed hitting outfielders. I think that might be the route they go. You can look at the free agent list and throw a dart at the right-handed hitting outfielders. They probably all fit if they're veterans, And then with Boers, the Rangers had been warned that he was going to need probably a year. They were hoping for less. He was throwing with the shoulder injury. The velocity hasn't come back. It didn't come back. I don't know if it has now or not. I mean, he's probably not even throwing right now, frankly. But maybe there's just, they need the roster spot. Maybe they can bring him back on a lesser deal, a minor league contract, perhaps. But it looks like his time here might be done just based on the canned Chris Young quote that we all got. And then Webb wasn't going to break the bank here.
No,
we're talking $2 million for a guy who signed for 1.25 last year in the offseason, wanted to be with the Rangers badly. And he had a 3 ERA, a 1.03 whip. He doesn't blow guys away. He's a changeup guy. But this one does surprise me a little bit. For a team that needs to rebuild its bullpen, they have decided that an affordable Jacob Webb, who was a fit last season, is no longer a fit. And that's not to say that he can't be brought back. He's so good against left-handers with that changeup. I mean, he just had a good season. He gave up a few too many home runs, but other than that, I was expecting him to be back. Just So what does this say? Does this mean that the Rangers are aiming higher in free agency for bullpen pieces? Maybe, but
or cheaper,
or cheaper, which is going to be hard to do.
Right.
So I don't know that this door may not be closed.
No, and truthfully, the door, but they okay. So let me say this: they did agree to a contract with Sam Haggerty.
Yeah.
So Sam Haggerty was tendered a contract. And it feels to me like if they were going to open the door for any of these guys, and I see people in the chat, could we bring any of them back at a lower price? It feels like they would have done that already to me, Jeff, rather than non-tendering them and then trying.
Well, I would think the pitchers have a chance to come back. I don't think Heim and Garcia did. I thought, like you said in the open, and like we've said for a long time now, these guys aren't coming back. They're the decline. The body language is a real thing on Heim. It sucks the energy out of the team, and they can't have it back. Okay, like we've said, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Well, the shame's on the Rangers. They were counting on those two guys, along with several others, to be better in 2025, and they were not. So it's time to move on. And just where the Rangers are salary wise with these two, they were the first two up.
Yeah, and this is one that we saw coming with regard to Adolis Garcia and Jonah Heim. I think that again, the Rangers were able to build a bullpen, Jeff, last year with guys cheaper than $2 million a year, right? So maybe there's a confidence level there that, like, yeah, we did it last year, we can do it again. I think they better be careful trying to do that every year because it was a really good bullpen. But maybe that's the thought process. And, as they've said, they've got some alternatives in the outfield, but really the one that is the most worrisome. Well, and then as far as Boris goes, I think that they also fear he's just not going to get that velo back. They
Right.
gave him the year, and then they worked him slowly back into the process and through the minor leagues, and he just didn't get it back. Mason's been in the chat saying, I watched him pitch. I'm not surprised that they non-tendered him. We were told at the end of the year they were hoping that a full offseason allows him to get back to what he was, and maybe they figured he can't get back there. He's just not going to be able to physically. But the big question mark then is, what the heck to do at catcher?
Yeah. And that, a couple of people I've spoken to even before today were saying that's if they were in charge of the team, they have a say, but they're not in charge. Their number one priority would be finding a catcher. And like we said earlier today, John, at our 1:00 show, the free agent list ain't great.
No.
Probably going to have, this is probably a trade situation, a trade scenario, and that's fine. Maybe you can get somebody who's controllable, whether because Higashioka's contract is up after 2026,
Right.
so you're going to need another catcher next offseason. You don't want to have to sign two. So maybe they can get somebody who's a little more controllable and could potentially be around for a while. Now, those guys don't come cheap in terms of player equity. Minor leaguers or young major league players. That's usually what it takes to get a young, controllable player. Talked about the White Sox and Kyle Teal and one of their young prospects. I don't think the White Sox are necessarily motivated to do that, but then again, they did trade the Cy Young runner-up last offseason before he got too expensive.
Yeah.
They aren't quite there yet with either of their catchers, but you never know what's going to motivate a team. But what the Rangers did last year with the bullpen is they went and sought out guys who had been good previously,
Sure,
but were coming off of really bad 2024 seasons, or subpar, or in a less effective than normal. Sean Armstrong and Hobie Milner come to mind. Right off the bat, and they signed affordably, and now they might be out of the Rangers' price range, depending on what they're going to do here. So, because they had such great seasons, let's not forget about Phil Maton and Danny Coulombe, who were brought in at the trade deadline. Coulombe, who lives locally, Maton, who said that he's tried for 2 off seasons in a row to sign with the Rangers. So maybe there's some headway that can be made there, and Milner lives in North Richland Hills.
Yeah.
He's a local guy too, and Armstrong wants to be back, but If these relievers have a chance at multiple years and big dollars, they're not going to turn it down elsewhere.
Sure. No, that's absolutely true. But as I look at it, if it's about, well, and you're considering budget and everything as the front office, right? And if it's about, well, we can keep Milner and Armstrong, but in that case, we'd have to sacrifice Webb. I'm taking that every time, right? I mean, you have to make tough decisions,
Sure.
and I'll take those two. As much as I like Jacob Webb, and like you said, he had a really good year. There's nothing not to like. But if you're making those difficult cuts that are based on a budget, and if those two other things happen, they haven't signed either one of those other guys yet.
Yeah.
So, but if they come back, I'll go. Oh, I can. It's easier to accept the Jacob Webb news if those other two guys come back. The Josh Sborz thing, I wonder if maybe he loves it here. They love him. Maybe they've got a wink deal that they're going to bring him back in some form or fashion to try and help get him right. But I also wonder, is he going to grab a contract somewhere based on what he did in 23 and before?
He was really good in the postseason. But he had moments throughout that season when he was hurt and tried to pitch through it, and his numbers suffered for it. We're not talking about a guy who has a career 2 ERA.
No.
He might be tough for him to get a deal somewhere. But when he's right, he belongs on a major league roster. He can get big outs for you with his really really good curveball, and if the velocity's 96 to 98, he is a heck of a pitcher, or he can be. But the shoulder injury, it's unfortunate, and they're the one. It's like you ask any pitcher, would you rather hurt your shoulder or blow out your elbow? They're going to take the elbow just about every time. So I think Josh has found himself in that situation, but hopefully something breaks through here, and he can get back on a mound. We love the guy, right? I mean, the bottom line is we
100%.
hope for the best for all of these guys. But if you're a Rangers fan, or if you're a Rangers writer or reporter, this is on the wall, written on the wall. This isn't a surprise, at least with Adolis and Jonah. And it's time to move on, because it's probably the best thing for the team in the case of those two.
Yeah, and I think as I watched our chat today during this emergency pod on DLLS Rangers podcast, I see our savvy fans who are with us so often, and many / most of them have gotten their brain around this, because we have talked about this being a possibility for a long time. But so it's like, maybe this surprises me or that does, but Jonah and Adolis isn't really a surprise, and most of the people seem to have their head around it. I looked at the replies though of the Rangers tweet that announced this on Twitter, and man, there is nobody on board. I mean, you run down a whole page of replies, and people. I mean, one guy's like, "I'm ready to jump off a building." One guy's like, "Thanks, you everything that was great about this team is gone." One poor guy, he says, "I have 3 jerseys: Heim, Garcia, and Sborz." So, that poor guy, 3 jerseys, he paid $400 for those things, and now he's got to go buy more. So, it's again, if you are in the weeds a little bit, like so many of our chat and our friends are, a lot of this we kind of saw coming. We've anticipated, we've talked about it, but I promise you, Jeff, this is going to shock many, of the more casual fans in the Rangers nation.
Yeah, and I haven't checked Twitter yet, because that's generally a place I try to avoid. But it doesn't surprise me. It's the casual fan who loved the World Series, and look, a lot of people loved that. How many people did they estimate were at just the parade? And Adolis was the man. There's no question. That guy was the man at that point. But if you look at take the 30,000-foot view here. He was the man for 1 year. All right. He was good, at least power wise, before that. These last 2 years were a pretty staggering drop off, and this year, even more so. And when you throw in the economics, the expected payroll cut, it you just couldn't keep them. If they had an unlimited budget, they wouldn't keep them. It just, there's not value there. And even when you spend a ton of money, you don't want to spend bad money. And I think that giving him $12 million and crossing your fingers that he's going to be good again would be doing that. And hate to say it about the guy, but that's just the way that his career has taken him.
Yeah, and it's the way that Jonas has taken him too, and he was another one who was just there was so much hope, and we all realized he got worked too hard, right, in that 2023 season. Like, he, first of all, he ended up getting injured and came back just before the playoffs began, and did a great job throughout the playoffs, but there was too much load on him. Mitch Garver was there as a backup and all that. And of course, Austin Hedges, right? But the reality is we were putting too much, Jonah caught every game of the postseason. So there was a lot of pressure on him. And for 2 years in a row, the Rangers tried to alleviate that. And even, with the theory that less Jonah equals more Jonah. And that just never panned out either.
Right. And, somebody during our earlier show, and I haven't checked the chat here, said, Jonah hasn't been the same since he hurt his wrist.
Yeah.
He hurt his wrist late July, right before the All-Star break, or I'm sorry, the trade deadline of 23. That's how Austin Hedges ended up on the roster, because the Rangers needed some insurance. I mean, they thought Jonah was going to have surgery.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like season-ending surgery.
Right.
He comes back. He plays through whatever pain there was. Never had surgery. It was never, deemed necessary, and so he carried on. And I don't know if that has bothered him. You could argue, and he even made this point, that those 3 weeks off he had in 23 were the break he needed to get through the postseason. Well,
Sure.
He didn't have that break in 24 because Andrew Kisner didn't work out. So they went out and got Higashioka with the less is more thing in mind, and that didn't work out. And so, throw in the mental stuff that Jonah talked about at the end of 24, how in 23 he was an all-star and World Series winner and all this stuff, and then he slumped early on and couldn't get out of it, and it was a mental thing. He was still there this year. So believers in fresh starts might be interested in Jonah Heim and Adolis Garcia too. I mean, I had a member of the coaching staff during the season say, if I'm Adolis, I probably need to get out of here just to get away. And, to answer the question that you've posed, John, about how do you go from World Series hero to non-tender? I still think that the offseason between 23 and 24, when the Rangers were unwilling to give him the money he wanted in arbitration, and they ended up almost going to a hearing, I think that kind of affected him a little bit mentally. Okay, so he comes out, has a great April. Somebody told me with the club, as he continued to slump and decline, that after seeing that April and seeing like, oh, this guy MVP talk, he could do this, he could do that he bought into that, and then mentally was unable to shake it. This guy was, you could ride him when he was hot and he could carry the team and everybody loved him. But when he was in trouble, he really took it hard. And so I think there's also a little mental side to Adolis as well.
No doubt. I think it was Joe in the chat saying in this show, wouldn't it be hilarious if Adolis signed with the Astros? And if I'm the Astros, why not? I mean, that guy killed us, right? I mean, he was somebody put in, he was the mayor of Houston. So, yeah, if I'm the Astros, I'm kicking the tires on Adolis Garcia. Let him do all that damage he did against us for us now. But it will be very interesting. A couple of other people rightly said, just hope really neither one of them land in the division, because we both know this. We all know this. Either one of them with new surroundings and a new voice. And I promise you, the new voice will be giving almost the exact same message that they've been getting here. But we just know change of scenery sometimes is all people need to take it to another level.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason because it's happened so many times in the past. Um, and Adolis might fit in that short porch, the silly Crawford boxes. Um, Angels fans or Astros fans would have to have a reckoning with themselves.
Yeah.
But I I think he's going to find somewhere to play, and he'll get a lot of at bats. But he has to change. They asked him to work on his swing last offseason, and he did. But it robbed him of what made him great. And when he was asked to kind of combine the two, this is what you got. Personal hitting coaches, and something else we talked about earlier, they don't teach approach. They teach the technical side of the swing. Adolis still cannot lay off a high fastball.
No.
And so he gets himself out a lot. And
Yeah.
he until he shakes that, until he tightens up his approach, I'm not sure that he's going to be an everyday player for a team.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because it is the memories are so great, right? There is so much emotion in baseball. There's so much nostalgia, even 2 years later, that it's hard to part with people who were such a significant part of it. So, to summarize what we've been talking about here, we expected, frankly, that World Series heroes Jonah Heim and Adolis Garcia would be not tendered contracts today, and they weren't. There was a bit of a surprise on the pitching side, though, as Jacob Webb and Josh Sborz were non-tendered as well. All three of those men, four, I should say, are now free agents. And so the Texas Rangers, at 34 men on their 40-man roster, have a lot of work to do. And they not only have to find people to replace the guys they've non-tendered, but they may have to build a bridge with many of their fans who have such fond memories of 2023 and of a guy named Adolis and a guy named Jonah and, of course, a guy named Josh Sborz.
I agree with what you said. It's breaking up is hard to do, as the song says, and that's what happened here. The Rangers had a long relationship with these guys. They traded Elvis Andrus to get Jonah Heim. They found Adolis Garcia on a little trade with the Cardinals after he had been put on waivers. Then they put him on, and they DFA'd him again. He cleared. He fills in for Ronald Guzman out of nowhere and becomes a star, a fan favorite, a World Series hero. Same thing with Jonah, and then Josh Sborz, who is affable and everybody likes him, and he threw the most famous pitch in Rangers history, and they're gone. It's only been 2 years. Look, it's a what have you done for me lately business, and it's got an ugly side, and today was part of that. But if the Rangers are going to be better, they had to move on from Garcia and Heim. The offense is not going to be the same if you keep bringing back the same guys and expecting something different to happen. So we wish them well. Thanks for the memories, guys, and we'll catch up with you down the road.
Yeah, what do they say? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So, as insane as some of these moves may seem, they actually may be just the opposite of that, as the Rangers move on and now basically retool, reconstruct, rebuild their roster. That's going to do it for us. We so appreciate you hanging out. We know a bunch of you were anticipating this, and so we're glad to have you, and we're awfully glad to have any of you that are new to the program. Don't forget, we do this every day at 1 o'clock. We talk Rangers baseball with you in the chat, and we're here basically all off season, then of course all season long. So like us, subscribe to us, hang out with us every day at 1:00 as we talk Rangers with you on the DLLS Rangers podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.